even well known for his contributions to the practice as well as the technology of finishing processes. And he has worked, has been a leader in the industry, working with Norton, and later I think it became Saint-Gobain. And he has mentored a lot of people, both in the industry as well as academia in this front. And in the last 10 years, I have known him as a collaborator with Professor Ramesh Babu, and actually being able to translate some of the research as well as technologies which are at lower technology readiness level into actual practice. And I really enjoyed learning about the intelligent machine tools that he built as part of Micromatics. And one of the reasons why I would like to have him as part of our part of our project meetings is to learn from him about some of his vast experiences, especially in translating, or what it takes to translate some of these technologies, and how we can think about our research so that they are easily translatable to industrial practice and create value.
The system thinking and transformational skills, what is it? Why is it essential for the 21st century professionals? In fact, it was needed even for the second half of the 20th century professionals, which is who I was, and I continue to be now into the 21st century. Now, on the other hand, because of the discussions with Satish, it's a very useful one. Instead of keeping the seminar just for itself, I divided it into two parts. The first is to give you a quick overview of this topic, and then go on to give you how it is applied in a real-life example. And with that, we will then at the end have some discussions. And anytime you have comments or questions, put them in the chat box or wherever, and we can come back and pick it up as we go forward. So to ask the question, to start the seminar, if I were to ask the question 2 + 2, obviously you will know the answer very quickly. And in fact, those of you who know the answer, write it down. We'll come back and check your answer a little bit later on. And of course, some of you may be thinking, what is this doctor? By the way, Satish, I am Dr. Subramanian. Professor is a title you gave me. I appreciate the honor. I tend to be academic, even though I come from industry. Nonetheless, so you may think, Dr. Subba, what is this no-brainer question you are starting us with? Well, let's go to the next no-brainer question. How is the work? Organizationally, people know that there are blue-collar jobs, then there are white-collar and middle management, and then senior management. What is important in this picture is pyramid is that those who are in the blue-collar could rise up to higher level, and they could pick up the knowledge of the white-collar work, and then they go to middle management. From there, they can move on to senior management. As you know, the CEO of Exxon, who was in the Trump administration, actually started as a blue-collar worker. And then he rose to the ranks to become the CEO of one of the largest companies in the world. As a result, the wealth of the people was not only accumulated at the top. In fact, when I started my career, when I went to work at Ford Motor Company, the worker in the factory floor who will work 12 hours a day and 7 days a week could get double overtime. As a result, he will have one house in Michigan, one house in Florida, a big boat or yacht in Florida, and a trailer to take it from Michigan to Florida every summer. And he'll work only 9 months a year, and 3 months he will take off for having a good time. I don't think any of you would have the luxury to do it today. Even your dean or your chancellor would not have the luxury to do that today. Why is that? We'll talk about it in the next slide. So the work, as we know of it, is kind of getting divided into 4 distinct categories. And they're impermeable layers, sadly enough. Blue-collar work or physical labor. We no longer call it blue-collar work. It's actually physical labor. Or information work, which is where you write the codes for programs. And then professional work, and then investment and finance. Now, sadly enough, these are impermeable, and only a small segment of this work, which we call professional work, is where really the opportunities are. And that is why a lot of people are told You have to be entrepreneur. You have to jump from job to job. You have to work harder. You have to work smarter. You have to be an expert in engineering as well as history, and all kinds of expectations which are so enormous that one wonders how we can we possibly do that. On the other hand, this also gets divided between non-wage income and wage income. So most of us who are professionals and information workers and physical labor earn our living through wage, whereas the non-wage income is the other portion. And if you look at the wealth, as a result of which, top 10% own 85% of the wealth, and then the middle 40% own only 14% of the wealth, and the bottom 50% own approximately 1% of the wealth. You may be wondering why Dr. Subbe is talking about all these details about global economics and jobs and careers and things like that. Because all of these things affect us, each one of us personally. So let me ask you my second question here. Instead of 2 plus 2 equals what, for which you would have written down your answer. How many of you think you're scientists? Write down a check mark in your notebook. How many of you think you're engineers? Write down in your notebook. And how many of you think you're managers? Write down in your notebook. We'll go further and come back and check on that. So 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, no brainer. At least I've given you the answer as most of you might have written down. But I would like to ask you the question, is it really? Then the second question is, how many of you asked a question or wrote down, what does the 2 stand for? If any of you wrote down, that will be great. Enter your name or however in the chat box. So we'll come back and check that. Now I tell you, the 2 plus 2 I had in mind was an orange and apple on one side, banana and pineapple on the other side. What does this 2 plus 2 stand for? Well, you may say it's 4 varieties of fruits, in which case your arithmetic is good, but your system thinking is not evolved yet. Then I like to give you, what is it that we as professionals do? Why is it important? Because large fraction of the professionals end up being the only ones who really have the true knowledge of the products and process of the company. So the output of every professional is a product or a solution of value to the user. That product, when it's used, the customer gets a value out of this, and that generates the revenue. Most people think the product generates the revenue, which is a fallacy. Product, you can have all kinds of products in your warehouse, in your stock inventory, but that by itself does not generate revenue unless it is used by the customer to generate the customer perceived value. And it's the customer perceived value that also determines what are the needs that are satisfied and what are the needs that are not satisfied, as a result of which you identify new opportunities through which you do new processes leading to new product and then the use. So as you can already see, there is on the input side from professionals output, which is the process, product, and use, and that gets transformed into customer perceived value, and the output then leads to revenue and customer needs satisfied or not satisfied. So you're beginning to get the sense of system thinking even at this level. So as such, every one of you, whether you're a student, whether it's a professor, whether you're a postdoc or a researcher or any engineer, it doesn't matter. Your outputs are process, product, and use, and they're interrelated. If someone says, I'm working on manufacturing process research, means absolutely nothing unless that process is connected to some product and that product is connected to use by someone. So any change in any one of them is an opportunity for change in the other, and hence innovation is not something that is serendipitous, but it can be very predictive and deterministic. So in fact, a whole new field is emerging in the West Coast called customer success management, only for the software industry. But the same customer success management in the hardware industry is what I did for 2 decades ago, and implemented a whole series of application technology centers, which are working successfully now, even now worldwide. And every one of you have an opportunity to create a customer success management team and applications opportunity, And if you're at the university, dean level or some level of authority, you can bring the faculty together and create customer success management for industries in your own area. We can talk more about it later on how to do that. But the point of this slide is product, process, and use are the three outputs of any professional. They are interrelated, and each of them can be treated as system. And together they create a system of input, transformation, output. And the output is a customer perceived value which generates rewards. And the not satisfied needs of the customer create opportunities for process. And hence, innovation itself can be deterministic and not serendipitous. Now, let's look a little bit more about what is a system. Now, there are different definitions of system, and I also know you have your own course on system and so forth. But let me give you a definition here. Every system is an input, transformation, output, scheme, or arrangement. The output itself can be divided between what is it you're trying to produce and why you're interested. In the problem 2 plus 2 equals what, I gave you input side, orange and apple, banana and pineapple. But I did not give you the what on the output side. Nor did I tell you why I'm asking the question. So unless you are satisfied with those, you cannot go into executing the system. And also you need to know how to get at it from the bunch of pineapples sitting in 4 different baskets. And the transformation very often is a black box. And you think you are teaching the transformation through quote unquote science, but unfortunately, that never becomes part of the system as soon as you leave the university. So how do you make this transformation become an integral part of every job we do, either at the university or in any job or any career, or it's really a challenge we face? We can arrive at that by looking at what is called the value addition score. What is a value addition score? The knowledge and its use is that's what a professional does. We also do information work. We also do physical work. For example, when you, in this seminar, we have, you are all input side as students or audience. I am on the input side as a teacher or faculty or providing the seminar. All the slides, all the material, they're all part of the input. The transformation is the attempt to try to share the knowledge from what I have to what you need. And then what you get out of it and why you will benefit out of it will be the output. So we already described this seminar as an input transformation output scheme. So similarly, any project, any activity, you can take it and divide it between any course you take, you can describe it in this context. So in that, there are only 3 things involved: the knowledge and its transfer, which is used, A, information work, all the slides I prepared and the projector we are using, the computer network, all those things, and the physical work, my talking, your listening, sitting down, all those things, information work. So the value addition score is knowledge work or use of the knowledge divided by the effort put into knowledge, information work, and physical work. So that score is what we call as the value addition score. So one other thing in system thinking is always calculate the value addition score. If you cannot calculate the value addition score, then you're not engaging in a system, you're only engaging in a task. For example, you ask me to give a seminar, I give a seminar, we go away, there is no knowledge transfer, we did a lot of physical work, but we cannot actually quantify any of these things, then that's a task. When we quantify and arrive at it, at least we think about a system. When you maximize the value addition score, then we have got a very optimal system or ideal system or a system with a great degree of impact. Why is it necessary? Because if you take an equation with a numerator and a denominator, you see my math is very simple. It is not as complicated as some of the equations you may be writing, which may be, for which I take my hats off, because I'm never good at those kinds of things that you do. Nonetheless, you've got a numerator, you can increase that. That is one way to increase the value addition score. The other way is to decrease the denominator. Obviously, with a certain knowledge content, you want to do that, so you don't change the A, but you can decrease the effort put into information or labor. And everything we do using digital technology is attempt to decrease B and C. So that you've got two modes of improvement value addition score. One is creating new solutions by higher value addition or through the knowledge. The other is to replicate what's already known through high volume plug and play solutions by decreasing the effort or put into through information work and physical work. For example, once you have recorded this seminar, all you can disseminate it to 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. It doesn't matter. So you'll be creating replication solution on the right hand side. But on the other hand, this seminar by itself will be hopefully the left hand side for a new solution. So system thinking then requires constantly thinking about new solution versus replication solution. Why is it also important? There's a big crisis in the middle. If you only think what you did that was done yesterday and continue to do it and more people can do what you're doing today, then you can be sure you'll be pushed into the right-hand side. If on the other hand, you're creating out of what you did today something new by adding a little bit more to your numerator and also taking advantage of B and C, no arguments on that, but your weightage is on the A, then you're moving towards higher solution. That in truth is the innovation, entrepreneurship, moving from job to job, creating, adding value, being interdisciplinary. All the things that they talked about in all the words can be taken into this one picture. The wrap up then we said, we have product, process, and users are output of any professional, and it has to result in user perceived value, which results in revenue, reward, profit, whatever you are looking for. It also identifies satisfied needs, and those that are not satisfied creates opportunity for new process, and cycle continues. This can be for a physical process, like a manufacturing, a product, things like that. It can also for education process, any process you think about. Then there is a gap. We have to constantly keep jumping from replicate, plug and play solutions to new solutions. And then don't sit there forever, but move back into replication. Because there are a lot of people who think that they can innovate and stay there. You cannot. What happens to most entrepreneurs is they jump from right-hand side to left-hand side. Then somebody else buys it and it becomes, or you make an IPO. And then they move to the right-hand side. Then once they are on that side, 2 or 3 years later, they jump back to the left-hand side. So this is the cyclicity that an innovator constantly pursues. And those who move to the right-hand side usually get lower paying, low reward jobs. Those who move to the left-hand side are the new solutions, usually is a high paying, high reward jobs, because that's where the knowledge gets used. That is why we call our economy 21st century economy as the quote unquote knowledge economy. It is not because IT and computers are doing something like artificial intelligence and robotics, but the value of the knowledge, when it's packaged into new solutions, is much larger today than it ever was. And the opportunity to take it into the market and the customer space is much larger today than it ever was. So, and you can then see the people on the right-hand side are usually 50% of the population with only 1% of the revenue or 1% of the wealth. In the new solutions, most professionals, 40% with 14% of the wealth. And then the non-wage income is where 10% of the people with 85% of the wealth. Or somewhere in between, you can kind of make a little bit argument for that. So coming back to our simple question, 2 plus 2, if you think it's a no-brainer, then if you understood that 2 plus 2 implies orange and an apple, banana and pineapple, then you cannot simply tell me 2 plus 2 is 4 variety of fruits. Because that is purely arithmetic, but that's only task-oriented. But if you ask me, why did you ask this question? What is it you expect out of this? Then you have to begin to act as a system thinker. Essentially, you can think of any system involving a machine, tooling, work, parameters as the inputs, and the transformation, which is the science of the process, which you can measure and analyze using diagnostic tools, what you're interested in, why you want to do that. So it's a what and a why determine the strategic aspect of the management and how to make it happen with respect to the science in an efficient economic manner, the operational aspect of the management. Bringing all the inputs together to exploit this transformation is engineering behind the process. the transformation itself, which is applicable irrespective of wherever the transformation takes place, would be the science behind the process. Then you will say technology is science times engineering times management, which involves operation plus strategy. In other words, technology involves science, engineering, and management. If any one of them is zero, technology is zero. I had to share this with you because when you go to, fortunately, if you have $50,000 and you want to invest in stock market today, and you give it to a broker and say, invest in the technology sector, he's not going to invest in Pratt& Whitney or General Motors or Chrysler or whatever company you have in mind, because they're not part of the tech sector. What is in the tech sector is IBM, Google, Apple, Twitter, Facebook. Why? Because the very notion of technology has been hijacked to think that technology means digital technology and not a science-based solution. Why did that happen? Because those of us who work in that field have let that happen. Because I asked you earlier on, how many of you are scientists? Probably very few would have said yes. Many of you would have said you're engineers. How many of you would have said management? Probably nobody. So do not think that only a guy who is wearing a white coat is a scientist, a blue jacket is an engineer, and a pinstripe suit is a manager. No. Every one of us is a system thinking, is a scientist, an engineer, and a manager. If any one of them is zero in our thinking, the value of our technology is zero, as seen by us, and as seen by the users, and as seen by the society. So when we say that we do a PhD in mechanical engineering, but nobody wants it anymore, things like that, because we have devalued it ourselves. It's not that somebody else devalued it. So valuation and devaluation is within our own hands, within our own capacity. So that brings us to three levels of system thinking. I will not belabor on this. The first is awareness, where you can fill all the boxes. I have put two schematics here. One is for pertaining to a machine or an industrial process. In other one, which involve machine, tooling, work component, technical, which is the physical transformation, and then output. And the other one is for general investment, expenses, need and constraints, but otherwise the framework is the same. The science, engineering, and management strategy is the same. So to be able to fill these boxes is what we call as awareness. And then understanding what the science behind them is would be, and engineering and management and how to apply them will be called analysis. As a result of which, configure new solutions based on knowledge and its refinement through awareness and analysis will be synthesis. Develop them into new solutions, implement, validate, and get rewarded will be. So again, system thinker now has got three levels of thinking, awareness. So we said 2 + 2 = what? No brainer, 4, okay. But I told you it's 4 types of fruits. But I have to tell you what is the technical output and what is the system, why is the system output. So now if I showed you 2 + 2, in my thinking was all these different things. Now you are telling me, aha, 2 + 2 is a fruit salad or a fruit plate or a decorative arrangement. That is a technical output. And new solutions and getting rewarded for that is my system output. So you see the very simple question 2 + 2 thought of as a system leads to an understanding of what are the inputs involved in the 4 categories. What is the transformation that I had in mind, which is not shown here at all, the result of which is a technical output, and the benefit out of it is a system output. This is the simple most thing that is required, and this is our knowledge. No amount of computer can be taught to do that, but every one of us can keep this in our mind everywhere we go. And then use the computers and systems to exploit that, just like this slide is prepared using the computers. So to summarize it, I told you about the system thinking, and there are a set of 7 transformational skills, of which I talked about the emphasis on science, I talked about knowledge integration, and I talked about end-to-end innovation. But there are others, each one of them will constitute a seminar by itself. In fact, ideally, a course can be taught on system thinking and transformational skills, about 10 to 12 classes that will be very valuable and powerful, not only for your students, but also for people who are collaborating with you from the industry and not only for your department, but across many departments. So to summarize then, yes, we need academic education, which you are all providing very nicely. You also need industry collaboration because that's where this rubber meets the road. But you also need transformational skills, which is not formally taught today. And without that, we are acting only in activities that are task-oriented, and we don't have the time. You have to change reverse the direction of these arrows of doing what you're asked to do and saying, I don't have time, I don't have anything, I don't have a result, life is frustrating, to a transformational where you must be goal-oriented, where every day you do something must have some technical output and a system output, which leads to system thinking, common language. We only had the beginning of the common language today, emphasis on science, knowledge integration. Then we go to end-to-end innovation, core technology platforms, emotional intelligence of innovation, and ecosystem development. So what I have told you today allows you to think in terms of moving away from task to goal. From there, you need to move into impact and finally into sustainability. So as a homework assignment, because I'm talking to the university and university faculty and student, I'll leave this slide with you. Take this slide and write your own answers. And if you have questions, you can always come back to me. Develop a dictionary for the following words or their meaning. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, we can take it from here.
Again, thank you, Dr. Subbu.